I never expected to see the end of my career happen in a glass-walled boardroom overlooking the Manhattan skyline. But there I was, standing in the back like an extra in someone else's story, watching him present my idea to a room full of executives, and being applauded like the second coming of Steve Jobs. It was surreal. His name was Jake, senior creative strategist at Lexia Media, and he had just stolen everything I had spent the last 6 months building. The pitch was called Pulse, a campaign for a wearable brand aimed at mental health awareness. I had poured every drop of insight, emotion, and market analysis into it. It was personal, rooted in stories from my own anxiety struggles. Every color scheme, every testimonial angle, every activation idea, it was me. But Jake delivered it like it was his brainchild. Even the jokes, even the damn heartbeat animation, I stayed up till 3 a.m. refining. And the worst part? He didn't flinch, didn't glance my way once, just stood there, confident, polished, charismatic. Like betrayal was part of his brand. The applause was thunderous. "Brilliant," our VP said. "Fresh and real. This is award material, Jake." I felt the air leave my lungs. My legs numbed. And still I smiled. Because that's what women in my industry are taught to do. Smile. Don't make a scene. Don't be emotional. Don't risk your career over one pitch. I remember whispering to myself, "It's just a project. You'll have other ideas." But deep down I knew something had cracked. The meeting ended. People filed out, patting Jake on the back. Someone even made a joke about finally unlocking his creative side. And then, as if fate had a twisted sense of humor, Jake walked past me, grinned, and said, "Nice dress today, Olivia." That was the moment. Not when he stole the idea. Not when he got the credit. Not even when they bumped him up to lead strategist a week later. It was that one line. That smug, dismissive tone. As if I were a secretary. As if I didn't matter. As if I hadn't bled into that campaign. That was the moment I realized I was never going to get anywhere by playing nice. I went home that day and didn't cry. Not because I wasn't devastated, but because crying felt inadequate. I sat in silence for hours. Then I opened my laptop and reread the original proposal I'd emailed Jake 3 months ago. There it was. All of it. Time-stamped. Documented. A blueprint of betrayal. And still, what could I do? Go to HR? They'd side with Jake. He was their golden boy. Sue? I didn't have the money for lawyers. Quit. That felt like surrender. So I did what I've always done best. I listened. I observed. I planned. And I waited. Because while Jake thought he'd buried me with a stolen pitch, he had no idea he just lit the fire under my entire comeback. Back then I thought Jake was one of the good ones. I was the youngest strategist in my division, barely 2 years into the role, still second-guessing every email I wrote, every sentence I said in meetings. In a team full of sharks and smooth talkers, Jake stood out, because he didn't interrupt me when I spoke. He remembered details about my presentations. He complimented my slides, even when others brushed past them. He made me feel seen. It sounds stupid now, but when you're a woman climbing through a male-dominated creative team, just being acknowledged can feel like oxygen. The first time Jake asked me out for coffee, I thought it was a mentor thing. "You've got potential," he said, sipping his overpriced latte. "Real spark. But you need to be more assertive. Loud people get heard. Smart ones get taken for granted." I nodded like a rookie intern absorbing wisdom. Well, that's what I was. And Jake? He was the golden boy. Clients liked him. Leadership praised him. He could pitch a pencil and make it sound like the second coming of Apple. So when he said, "Why don't we team up on something? Something big?" I said yes immediately. That something big became the Pulse campaign. We spent late nights in the glass-walled brainstorming room, scribbling post-it notes, playing lo-fi beats while arguing over taglines and font weights. I felt like I belonged for the first time, not as a support player, not as the new girl, but as a creative equal. Jake would often say things like, "This wouldn't work without your instincts. You've got this sixth sense for what clicks." We were building something real. Or so I thought. That's the thing about manipulators. They don't just steal your ideas. They steal your trust first. One night I left early. My sister was in town, and I hadn't seen her in months. I packed up my laptop, saved the Pulse deck on the shared drive, and texted Jake that I'd pick it up tomorrow. When I came in the next morning, the whiteboard had been wiped clean. My sticky notes were gone. The latest version of the deck had been cleaned up. Fewer notes, fewer comments. Just bullet points. Streamlined. Jake greeted me with a smile. Did some tidying up. Hope you don't mind. I didn't. I was grateful. I thought, wow, he's making this easier for me. That was the beginning of the end. We kept working. Or more precisely, I kept building the campaign. And Jake? He became the messenger, the filter, the face. And I didn't question it, because he said things like, they take me more seriously in meetings. I'm just getting your ideas through the door. And I believed him. Until one afternoon, 2 weeks before the big pitch, I walked past the executive wing and saw through the glass Jake in a meeting with the VP, presenting Pulse. Alone. No mention of me. No printed agenda with my name. No empty seat saved. My stomach sank. But I told myself, maybe it's just a preview. Maybe he's just setting things up. So I asked him that night. And he looked me straight in the eye and said, don't worry. We're in this together. That weekend, I ran into one of the assistant account managers at a networking event. Small talk, nothing big. But then she smiled and said, you must be so proud of Jake's concept. It's so unlike his usual stuff. My heart skipped. Jake's concept. She nodded. The Pulse pitch. He said he'd been dreaming that one up for months. We didn't even know he had it in him. She laughed. I didn't. I smiled. I swallowed hard. I changed the subject. And inside something snapped. The trust, the coffee chats, the compliments, they all unraveled at once. Like someone had yanked the curtain open and I realized, Jake never saw me as a partner. He saw me as the factory, the one who makes the product. He just figured out how to slap his name on the label. I didn't confront him. What was I going to say? You're using my work? He'd deny it. He'd gaslight. He'd twist it into I'm just being emotional. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I smiled like always. I went back to work. I polished every slide. I made that campaign bulletproof. Because if he was going to steal it, he was going to steal something so good, it would destroy him when I took it back. They say betrayal hits hardest when it comes from someone you trusted. But they never tell you what it feels like to sit in a boardroom full of people clapping for your betrayer, while you smile like an idiot. That Monday morning, I wore my best blazer. Not for anyone else. For me. I had a gut feeling Pulse was going to be the highlight of our year. And finally I'd get my shot. My name, my credit. The work I'd bled for. The meeting started like any other. Small talk, coffee cups, someone making a dumb joke about Monday brains. And then Jake stood up. And everything after that blurred into a quiet kind of chaos. He didn't just present the campaign. He owned it. Every word, every insight, every emotional hook. I watched him echo the very phrases I'd written, like he was reading my thoughts aloud. He spoke about his inspiration from his own mental health journey, how he envisioned Pulse as more than just marketing, more like a movement. I had to look down to hide my face, because what do you do when a man plagiarizes your pain? When he sells your story better than you could? At one point, I actually caught the eye of our creative director. She gave me a faint smile. One of those, wow, Jake's really killing it kind of smiles. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a sip of my lukewarm coffee and nodded along like a damn cheerleader. By the time he was done, the room erupted. The VP stood up and clapped. One of the directors leaned over and whispered, we could pitch this to national clients. This is next level stuff. Jake smiled modestly, hands in his pockets. It's just something I've been working on for a while. I felt something in me, close. After the applause died down, our VP looked around and said, anyone else want to add anything? I opened my mouth. I swear I did. But the words stuck in my throat. What could I say? That was my idea? In front of 14 executives? With zero proof and a man who already laid claim? So I said nothing. I smiled. And nodded. That afternoon, I sat at my desk and read the congratulatory email from HR, announcing Jake's promotion to lead strategist. No mention of my name. Not even in the footnotes. I stared at the screen for 5 full minutes. And then, I stood up, walked to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and threw up. I wasn't just humiliated. I was erased. That night, I didn't go home. I wandered the city for hours, coat flapping in the cold, trying to calculate how many years of my life I just lost. Not in terms of time, but belief. Belief that hard work paid off. That talent got rewarded. That decency mattered. It didn't. What mattered was presentation. And Jake knew how to perform integrity better than I knew how to demand justice. I went back to the office around 10 p.m. I couldn't sleep, and there was a part of me, broken as it was, that needed to see my desk one last time. Maybe pack my things. Maybe write a resignation letter. But what I found wasn't closure. It was an opportunity. Jake had left his laptop unlocked in the common area. Dumb mistake. Probably stepped out to flirt with the night shift receptionist again. And there it was, a file labeled personal docs. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside were screenshots of my original drafts with my name cropped out, notes from my documents, even photos of my whiteboard sketches. He hadn't even rewritten it. He just repackaged it. For the first time in 2 weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I felt clarity. I sent myself the file. Then I closed the laptop. Calmly. Carefully. Not a single soul saw me. And I walked out of that office not as a victim, but as a woman plotting a war. For 3 weeks, I didn't go back to the office. No 2-week notice. No grand exit. I just disappeared. I knew Jake wouldn't follow up. Why would he? He got what he wanted. Credit. A promotion. My silence. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a confrontation. I gave him something better, the illusion of victory. But while he was busy basking in the spotlight, I was digging. Quietly. Deliberately. I spent the next few days holed up in my apartment, alternating between rage and numbness. I slept on my couch, ordered takeout I barely touched, and stared at the same Pulse deck over and over again, my fingerprints smudged all over it, like a ghost haunting her own creation. Then on a rainy Thursday my phone rang. I almost didn't pick up, but the voice on the other end changed everything. Olivia. I froze. It was Naomi Anders. Naomi was a legend in the agency world. Founder of Bluefire Creative, the boutique firm that had launched campaigns for Nike, Dove, and half the women-led startups in New York. She'd spoken at a panel I attended years ago, back when I was still a shy associate scribbling notes. I heard about what happened, she said gently. I've seen it happen to too many women like you. My chest tightened. How did you? People talk. And you're not invisible, Olivia. You're just quiet. That's different. Naomi didn't pity me. That's what struck me first. She wasn't calling to rescue me. She was calling to recruit me. I saw your name on some early Pulse files a few weeks ago. Before things got messy, I knew it wasn't Jake's voice. I've seen him pitch. He's surface level. That campaign had layers. I was silent. Then she said something I'll never forget. You have a voice. You just forgot how loud it can be when it's your own. By the end of that call, I had a job offer. Not a junior role. Not an intern reset. Senior strategist. Autonomy. Full credit. No office politics. No stolen decks. Just clean work and a chance to start again on my terms. I took it. And for the first time in months, I slept. My first day at Bluefire felt like coming up for air. The office was smaller, warmer. Plants on desks. Laughter in the halls. People introduced themselves and meant it. No hierarchy drama. No Jake lookalikes lurking near printers. I was still scarred, of course. I flinched when people praised my work, half expecting a knife behind their back. I double-saved every draft, time-stamped every file. I built walls, but at least they were mine. Naomi gave me space. She didn't push. She didn't hover. She just let me be me. And slowly I began to remember what that felt like. About a month in, I was assigned a new campaign. Mental health awareness again. But this time, for a nonprofit startup run by trauma survivors. I hesitated. Pulse still lingered like smoke in my lungs. But Naomi looked at me and said, "You don't have to prove anything, but maybe you can reclaim it." So I said yes. And this time I wrote the narrative on my own. From scratch. No shadows. No Jake. The pitch landed. The client cried. We got the deal. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a ghost. Every day after that, I grew sharper, more sure, less afraid. My ideas got bolder. My voice is steadier. And somewhere along the way, I stopped checking LinkedIn to see Jake's updates. Not because I didn't care, but because I had better things to do than watch someone slowly fail in a role they stole. Then one afternoon, Naomi stepped into my office with an eyebrow raised and a smirk I hadn't seen before. She slid a manila folder across the desk. "Thought you might want to see this." I opened it. Inside, acquisition documents. Bluefire had just bought Lexium's East Coast branch. And guess who would be overseeing the integration process? Yep, me. The first time I saw Jake again, he was sitting in the same boardroom where he stole my soul. Same corner seat. Same smug posture. Same shiny watch tapping the table like he owned the damn rhythm of the room. But this time he wasn't the one leading the meeting. I was. Bluefire's acquisition of Lexium's East Coast office had been swift and quiet. That was Naomi's style. No drama, no fireworks. Just paperwork, signatures, and suddenly, the empire Jake thought he ruled was under new management. My management. I walked into the room wearing black. Clean-cut suit. Hair tied. Face still. A few of the execs stood, unsure whether to smile or bow. Jake just stared. For a second, just a second, he didn't recognize me. Then I saw it. The twitch in his eye. The clenched jaw. The way his fingers froze mid-tap. And I smiled. Not for him. For me. "Morning," I said. "Shall we begin?" I didn't give him time to speak. I opened my folder and launched into a transition plan. Restructuring timelines, leadership reevaluation, and creative project audits. All with a measured tone. No malice, no theatrics. Just business. Jake shifted uncomfortably when I brought up content ownership verification protocols. I noticed, but didn't look at him directly. Didn't need to. Halfway through the meeting, someone from HR passed me a document. Anonymous complaint submitted a year ago. Claimed idea theft, toxic credit culture, and systemic silencing of junior creatives. Guess whose name was on it? Mine. I had filed it. Back then. Never expected it to go anywhere. But Naomi had found it. Preserved it. And now it had weight. I looked up slowly. My eyes met Jake's. "We take these concerns seriously," I said. "There will be a review. Effective immediately." Jake's face drained of color. The room went silent. After the meeting, he followed me into the hallway. Of course he did. "Olivia," he said, voice low. This is personal, isn't it?" I turned to face him, calm as a glacier. "No, Jake. This is professional. That's the difference between us." He opened his mouth. Maybe to apologize. Maybe to spin it. But I wasn't interested. "I trusted you," I said. "And you taught me the cost of that. I hope you learned the price of stealing things that don't belong to you." He didn't respond. Just stood there, smaller than I remembered. The man who once erased me was now fading from the story. Later that day, I signed off on a departmental reshuffle. Jake's role? Dissolved. He wasn't fired. No public drama. Just irrelevant. A footnote. And me? I returned to my office, shut the door, and finally exhaled. I didn't dance. I didn't celebrate. Because revenge isn't about noise. It's about clarity. It's about becoming so untouchable. They don't even get the satisfaction of watching you burn. I never planned revenge. Not really. I didn't sit in my apartment plotting the downfall of a man who stole from me. I just wanted to be heard, to be seen, to be whole again. But somewhere along the way I realized something powerful. Sometimes the best revenge is to become so undeniably successful. They have no choice but to remember what they tried to erase. Jake was gone. Just like that. Quiet exit. No fanfare. I heard he tried to pitch at a few other firms after the restructuring, but the industry's small. Stories travel fast. And in this business, trust is the currency. He had none left. Me? I stayed at Bluefire. I mentored new creatives. Helped launch campaigns that actually mattered. Ones that weren't just buzzwords and mock-ups, but movements rooted in truth. And every now and then, I'd pass by the old Lexium office on my walk to work. Not out of spite. Out of peace. It reminded me of what I survived. and more importantly, what I refused to become. One day, I found an email sitting in my inbox. Unread. No subject line. It was from Jake. Just 5 words. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to. He was no longer the story. I was. They say the phoenix burns before it rises. And maybe they're right. Because I did burn. Quietly. Silently. In rooms where no one clapped for me. In meetings where my name was never spoken. But I rose. Not in fire. In clarity. In purpose. In strength. So if you've ever felt erased, forgotten, stolen from, let me remind you, you are not invisible. You are a storm waiting for silence to end. And when you rise, don't look back.